It's now time to talk to the Education Minister, Baroness Jacqui Smith. A very good morning to you, Baroness Smith.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us. So today you guys are announcing trying to make 10,000 more apprenticeship places available. Talk us through why and how.
Well, look, we've got a plan to change the country through growing the economy to get more money in people's pockets, by rebuilding the NHS and cutting waiting lists, shifting to green energy, building new homes for people, and, of course, making sure that people have got the opportunity to get on in life. And we're celebrating National Apprenticeship Week and all of the difference to people's lives and jobs that apprentices can make. But what employers have also said to us is, look, we want to have more apprentices, but there are elements of red tape that are preventing us from doing that. One of them is you need, if you're an adult on an apprenticeship, to do a separate qualification in English and maths. And actually, what we think and employers think is English and maths is really important, but it's how you apply it to the job that really matters. And as long as employers can be confident that their apprentices have got the English and maths they need, they shouldn't have to do a separate English and maths exam.
But it's interesting that we're qualifying maths and English qualifications, I think I'm right in saying GCSE would already count if you had it, as red tape. I mean, is that just a sign of the times? I mean, is that something you would have expected to be considered as red tape, not having a qualification in presumably still the two most important subjects overall?
No, absolutely they are. And I you know, it's hard to think of an apprenticeship where you wouldn't need to be good at communication and good at numbers, but you might not necessarily have a separate exam that says that. That's the red tape element. So if you think about a bricklayer, for example, of course they've got to understand, and it says already in the standards, they've got to understand ratios, they've got to understand about measurement, they've got to be able to communicate with other people they're working with. If you're a healthcare worker, you've got to have good communication skills. Those are part of your occupational standards. So what we're saying is it's really important that you still do those English and maths skills, but you don't necessarily have to prove that through a separate exam. We'll make sure all the occupational standards include the necessary English and maths, and then we'll say, as part of the apprenticeship process, you can demonstrate that you've got those. For young people, up to the age of 19, we still think it's important that they do have this separate study of English and maths, because you're absolutely right, it's the basis of future success in your life and career.
And do you think this is also a push that apprenticeships are maybe not better than going to university, but they're a very real alternative? How do you frame that to young people?
No, absolutely they are. And, you know, yesterday I met some brilliant people, younger and older, in fact, who'd done apprenticeships in some really competitive areas, fantastic life-changing opportunities. What we have in this country, what we've inherited, is a system in which there are not enough skilled people. University can be really important for providing skills. So can apprenticeships. What I want to see is the routes that are going to lead to success for individuals and are going to provide the skills for our economy to help us to deliver that plan for change for the country.
I think you singled out in the press release healthcare, social care and construction as some of the areas that apprenticeships can help boost the supply of workers for. How quickly will you see results of this? And in the sort of foreseeable future, the course of this Parliament, will we still need to fill those jobs from overseas with immigration?
Look, we're making the changes to English and maths from today. In the summer, we're making some other changes that we're announcing today that will reduce the minimum amount of time that you need to study an apprenticeship, so that if you've already got some prior learning, or if it's the type of job which could actually be a bit more condensed in terms of getting all of the standards. So those things are happening immediately. But what we're also doing is, because, you know, I think you're right, it's having the right skills to deliver that plan for change is a massive challenge. And we inherited a system in which there wasn't coherence and there wasn't a clear idea about where those gaps were. So Skills England, which was one of the first announcements the Prime Minister made, today we're announcing that the substantive chair will be Phil Smith, who's come most recently from chairing and being the CEO of Cisco, major technology and communications company. And they will be working really hard to identify where the current gaps are, to identify where the gaps are in the future, and what more we need to do in terms of apprenticeships, shorter courses, T-levels for younger students, to be able to fill those gaps.
But it is a fact, not a negative or a positive one, it's just a fact that those roles will be filled by positive immigration for the foreseeable future.
Well, I want there to be much more of a growth of our domestic workforce. That's what this push is all about, making sure that we've got people, homegrown talent, to fill those skills gaps. And that's why Skills England will also be working alongside the Migration Advisory Council so that we can identify where at the moment we are having to bring labour in from overseas, and we can make sure that those are the gaps that we're filling first.
I wanted to touch on a couple of other topics, some changes to the assisted dying bill that are coming forward. It's now likely that it will no longer need to see a sign-off from a High Court judge, and we'll get more of the details coming forward. Just wanted your sort of latest opinion on it. I don't, in fact, know your history on this topic, but what was your view towards it previously, and what's your view towards it now?
Well, the important thing, I think, about the assisted dying bill is it's been brought forward, obviously, as a private member's bill. The government has been clear that this is a matter for Parliament. It's currently going through that committee stage where they've been gathering evidence, they've been thinking as parliamentarians about how they want to take the bill forward. So I don't think it's appropriate as a government minister for me to be at this point saying what I think about the way the legislation is going. What the government will do is, when the bill has finished its time in committee, they will facilitate, if it's the will of Parliament that this becomes the law, they will facilitate that being as effective as possible, and they will also publish an impact assessment.
But I mean, I guess the whole point of it being a free vote and not whipped is that you can express your opinion. You're not willing to share your thoughts? When it comes
to so obviously it's only been through the House of Commons at the moment, so
you must have views on it.
As a member of the House of Lords, I didn't vote there. I will, when it comes to the House of Lords, I will want to look really carefully at what's happened in terms of the process so far, and to make a decision then about whether or not I think I can support it.
OK. I'm sure you saw Sam Coates' reporting this morning about the £100 million bat tunnel that's linked to HS2, and his reporting suggesting that it is going to have to go ahead regardless of the Prime Minister's attempts to get over some of these planning restrictions, and having explicitly talked about it in the past and saying how crazy it is. Should our environmental laws be considered to be completely torn up and start again if these sorts of things persist?
Of course, we're not completely tearing up employment laws and environmental protections and laws. But we are really, really clear that in order to deliver our plan for change for the country, we need to grow the economy, and that there are things that have prevented that from happening in the past. And if we want to get more money in people's pockets, if we want to transform the NHS, if we want to build the homes and the infrastructure that are necessary, we will need to make changes. And I think Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister have been very clear about that.
But I mean, if it's not possible to stop this bat tunnel, I mean, it suggests that more has to be done.
Well, what we've inherited is a situation where too often there have been things that have put enormous delay and enormous cost into the development of new infrastructure. And in the future, we're determined that that isn't the case.
Just finally wanted to talk about what the sort of view was around the cabinet table, as every day it seems to be a kind of new salvo of tariffs imposed by the US president, that there hasn't been anything that specifically targets the UK yet, that the steel and aluminium ones will affect the UK a little bit, but it's clearly not directed predominantly at the UK. Is there a sort of sense of keep our heads down and we can celebrate a little bit thus far, or what?
Well, I think what's happening around the cabinet table, not that I'm sitting there, but what's happening around the cabinet table is a real focus on what's necessary to deliver our plan for change in order to grow the economy. And of course, we will want to work closely with those partners who are very big trading partners for us. And we'll want to make the case that actually that trade is beneficial for us in the UK. It's also beneficial for the US. It's also beneficial for our EU partners and others who we are trading with. And that's the case that we will continue to make.
Baroness Jacqui Smith, thanks for joining us.